Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to talk about the auto material. This is something that's been highly requested on the comments, so please remember to leave your suggestions down below. I always keep a list of things that you suggest, and some of them I will turn them into videos for you guys. Now before we get started, I just want to say the best way to support my channel and what I do is by hitting that like button, subscribe if you haven't, turn on the notification bell, and share this video around. That really helps me out. Remember to stay all the way till the end if you want to see me applying displacement to the auto material. Now, in case you don't know, the auto material is a landscape material that when applied to a landscape here in Unreal Engine, it would automatically generate a variation depending on the height and depending on the inclination of the landscape. In this case, I have these two materials, which are the rocks and the grass. Now, if you're wondering how did I get this landscape sculpted, I actually didn't sculpt this in Unreal. Doing landscapes of this kind of shape and with this kind of detail, it's really hard. So I have to bring it from another program called Gaia. I will be making tutorials of that program later on, but that's the only way to get these nice landscape. Most AAA games use them, and some indie games use them as well. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this material and we're gonna start from scratch. All right, so I've cleaned up my landscape. This is how it looks once you are done sculpting. And what I did is I got some of the maps from the Megascans, because we're going to be using Megascans, and brought them into some folders to keep it a little bit organized. Now you're seeing a folder here called functions. We haven't talked about functions yet, so let's create them so you guys know about it. They're really useful and functional. So we go here in materials. We're going to go into material functions, and that's a big F right here. And we're going to call this one grass auto. I'm just gonna duplicate this and call it rock auto. I think there's a place called that. So we go into this node and you're gonna see that the only thing that's in here is an output result. So what's the purpose of this? The reason why we want to use a material function is to reduce the amount of clutter that we usually get by building a material into one single instance. So this way, think of this like a box where we will have a collection of textures and nodes that will then take that box, pull out a plug from that box so we can connect it to the actual material. That's how this works. So this is going to be containing like a mini material that's going to go into our auto landscape. So the first thing that I want to do here, I'm actually going to do it very simple. I'm not going to be copying over a lot of things from the Megascans. I'm actually going to do the tiling a little bit of a different way so you guys can see that there are other ways to do things. So I'm just going to go into my maps and let's get the grass first. And I'm just going to select albedo, normals, and roughness. All right, so once we have these nodes here, the next thing that I want to do is I want to bring a landscape coordinates. This is going to be doing the tiling the same way that the Megascans do it. So if you have watched my video on using the Megascan surfaces, you're going to see that I use something very specific for tiling that's within the Megascans. In this one, I'm substituting that for the landscape coordinates node. I'm also going to add a multiply node and a scalar parameter. So for this, I just hold the letter M and click, and for this, just hold the S and click. The scalar parameter is going to be called grass scale. And all we're gonna do is we're gonna plug one in A, one in B. And we're just going to plug this into every single node. So we're just going to go here, here, and here. The reason why you saw the change in color is because of the landscape coordinates. So in here, we're just going to go and type number 1 as a default value. That's what's going to be presented to us once we have this material ready. And we're going to change that later on, depending on how much tiling do we want. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to bring in a node called make material attributes. So click here, and as you can see, it has all the nodes possible. I'm just going to do RGB on base color, gonna do normals into normals, and I'm gonna do roughness in roughness. Actually, I should do this so it's a little bit more organized. And we're gonna plug this directly into our output result. And you're gonna see that that error message went away, and we have our material right here as if it was an actual material. That being said, you cannot use this as a material because this is a material function. So this is something that you're supposed to be using with the material, not on the mesh itself. So I'm just gonna hit apply, and I'm going to go and create the other one. I have my 3 textures right here. Let me bring in my landscape coordinates. You can also copy paste from the previous node if you wanted to. So I'm just gonna name this rock scale. Now let's plug everything in here. Let's make material attribute. Again, just plug in everything where it should be. Roughness, and this one's always out of the way. And normal maps. Okay, plug this into here. And we're done with this material. Really simple. I'm just going to make this one default value of 1. Apply. Now what we need to do is we need to actually create our material. So right click, material. I'll call it auto land grass and rock. And this is where we're gonna do most of the work. Now the way that we're gonna use this function is I'm going to grab these 2 and I'm going to put them here. So you cannot do this with an actual material. That's why you need functions, and look as how they show, very organized. So this is going to help us out a lot. Now the next thing that we need is break material attributes. Okay, so in here is where we are going to connect these 2, and this is going to take out the respective nodes. So it's going to take out the base color from this function and put it into the base color of here. So let's just do that connection right now. All right, base with base, roughness with roughness, normal with normal. Now we're going to bring in a blend material attributes. So it's this one right here. And this one works kind of like linear interpolation. If you've seen my other tutorials, I use a lot of linear interpolation in the blending. It usually does a mixing of A, B, and the alpha determines how you're going to do the mixing. So we're going to do, and this is a little bit weird, I still don't know the logic of this, is you have to plug in what you want to be underneath needs to be plugged in on top. So that's why we're going to plug in the rock on A. Again, I don't see the logic on that. I always thought on top should be on top, but for some reason, if I connected the rock into B, then the rock will be on top of the grass, which makes no sense. So I'm just going to put this here. And for alpha, we're going to bring in the node that's actually going to do all the work that we need for the auto material. So this node is called World Align Blend. This node is the most important part of our landscape blend material. So what this node does is it's going to determine the height of the world. It's going to determine the inclination of the landscape, and by that it's going to do a blending that is going to be determined by these 2 inputs right here. So one is blend bias. So we're going to get a scalar parameter. Actually, I'm just going to press S. And we're going to call this blend height. So the bias is going to determine the position of one of the materials, and the other one that we're going to be using is the sharpness. So the sharpness is, as the name implies, it's going to create a sharp transition between the two materials. So in this case, we can control the sharpness by using a scalar parameter, and that way we'll be telling it whether we want a soft transition or we want an actual sharp transition. So I'm going to actually copy and paste this, plug it here, and I'm going to rename it to blend sharp. Now I'm gonna give this to a default value. So we have a base to start with, and I'm gonna give this one a negative value, -12. And I'm going to plug this one in my blend attributes. So from here, we're going to take out a plug from the split normal into the alpha. And this is going to go over here. So as you can see, this is the reason for the material function. Look at how clean this is. Otherwise, we'll have a ton of stuff just laying around here with these two materials if we were not using the material functions. All right, so I'm just gonna save. And now what we're gonna do is I'm going to create an instance, and this is what I'm actually going to use. So double click here, and you're gonna see that I have my scalar parameters right here that I can control. So I have blend sharp, blend height, grass scale, and rock scale. These are all the things that I needed for this to work. So I'm going to hook this up over here. I'm going to see the change in our material very soon. It's going to go grab this and plug it in over here. And as you can see, instantaneous. We have an instantaneous blend of our material. However, it's tiled horribly, and that's what we're going to fix with those scalar parameters. So this is what the auto material does. It determines the inclination of your terrain, and the inclination is what's going to be generating the difference in blending. Now there's a couple of things that we need to adjust aside from the tiling, but let's get to the tiling first. So the first thing that we want to do is go into our grass scale. So I'm going to do 0.05. And for the rocks, I'm actually going to do the same. And you see how that actually looks really, really nice. So the great thing about doing auto material is that it really helps out with the tiling. If I just had one material that was all over this landscape, it will tile horribly even at this low amount. But because we have both materials and they are blending with the inclinations, we get these nice transitions in between both materials. So let us play with the other parameters that we have here. So we have the blend sharpness. So if we want to increase that, actually everything disappears. But as you can see, it's still a little bit of a blend, but there's more of a harsh transition. So this is actually going to help us determine where do we want the transition to start. So I'm just going to decrease it, and you can see here in the little sphere, it's actually changing with it. So you can determine here where you want your transition. I think I'm gonna take this as an example because there shouldn't be any grass in this part. So I'm just going to take it all the way back to 30, maybe a little bit higher, like let's leave it at 33.5. I think that's fine. And then we have the height. So the height is more self-explanatory. You can see it in action a little bit better than the fall off. So I'm just going to do, let's do -11, just so there's a little bit more grass. And now that I see there's a little bit of grass here that it shouldn't be there, so I'm just going to do 32, 30, 29. There you go. Let's see. Yeah, because there are these slopes right here. So I'm just going to leave it at 31. Okay. Now I'm happy with that, but you're seeing something that it's kind of weird. And it's the fact that when we're looking at the material like this, it looks fine. But if we look at it when the sun is actually hitting the material, you're seeing that we have this kind of shininess to it. And this is not because of the roughness. This is actually because of the specular map. Now, the specular is something that usually you don't want to touch, because if you change the values, you're going to be altering the PBR workflow and your materials will not be accurate. But in this particular case, when you're dealing with a landscape, you're going to see that you will need to alter that. Otherwise, this is going to look very shiny. And not only is it really uncomfortable to the eyes, it's actually not realistic at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to be going into our master material. And what we're going to do is we are going to put this here. We're going to add a scalar parameter to the specular. So we're going to do specular range. We're going to apply. And as you can see, after it compiled, it looks a lot better. So what you're seeing here is the fog, but it got rid of all the shininess that I had all around my map. So I did the scalar parameter, so in case you guys want to play with that and see how much you want to give it, I think 0.035 is fine. I think that's a decent value to have. But now our material looks a lot better, and there's still a little bit of tiling here, so I think I'm gonna go inside here. Now that we got rid of that shininess, we can see the tiling a lot better. And I'm gonna go into grass scale and I'm gonna type 0.02, and I'm gonna do the same thing with the rock. 0.02, 0.02. All right, so for those of you who stayed all the way till the end, we have the displacement map. So the way that displacement map is going to work here is a little bit different than what I do if you have seen any of my other Megascan videos. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to increase the fade distance by a lot, because one, we have the map tile very low, and two, we are actually very far away from the texture. So I'm going to go with 8,000. And I'm going to put the usual values that I do for tessellation, which is 25 on the near and let's say 10 on the far. Okay, so this is actually what's giving us our displacement. And as you can see, our displacement is starting to look really nice around here. We're getting some very nice shadows around those rocks. All right, so let me show you how this is done. Now, the difference with the displacement is if I go into Rock Auto, you're going to see that I have copy and pasted what you can find in the displacement file for the Megascans. So if you haven't watched any of my tutorials so far and you're brand new to this video, remember to subscribe first of all. And the second thing is you're going to have to import your Megascans and make sure that you have displacement on. If you don't have this checked, you're not going to get this master material that's going to give you all these nodes. So once you've imported your Megascans, you're going to go into MS presets. So it's always this folder that Megascans create. And you're going to go into the default material displacement. So double click here and you should have all these nodes around here. So this is what I copy and pasted into Rock Auto. And what I did is I substituted the displacement texture that comes with this with the displacement textures that I needed for my rock part. Now, if you want to know what all these nodes mean, I'm going to leave a link in the description to one of my videos where I actually go into depth on what all these displacement nodes do. But once you've done this, you have to go into the material, and what I did is actually something very simple. So what I did is everything else is left as it was before. There's just two break materials here that are brand new. So let me put it down so you guys can see what it is. So this is a break material attributes node that I took out from both the rock auto and the grass auto. So if I put them here, and what I did is I'm taking out the world displacement and the tessellation multiplier. So each is going to lerb node. So instead of going into one of these, I'm putting into a lerb node, and they are both, so the tessellation multiplier is going into this one, as well as the tessellation multiplier from the two of them going into this one. And this lerb node is using as alpha this world align blend right here that adds its own blend in case you want to modify that. And I'm using vertex normal. So that is the reason why I had to do this extra over here, because if you go ahead and you do it on this one right here and just connect tessellation multiplier and world displacement right over here, you're gonna get an error. And the reason why you're gonna get an error is because both the world displacement and the tessellation multiplier, they need to act with the vertex normals. The reason for that is because when you apply displacement or tessellation, you're changing the vertex count and the vertice position. So that is why you need to be using the vertex normal if you're going to be doing the displacement map over here. All right, so very simple. Just add a lerb node, make sure that displacement is with displacement and tessellation is with tessellation. Another question you may be asking is, why did I have to do this when I'm only having displacement on rocks and not on grass? The reason why I did that is because if I don't do this linear interpolation and I just straight put a break material and plug it in here, is I'm going to have tessellation all over the place. So my grass is going to be tessellated and it's going to be adding displacement over the grass, and that's just not going to look right. Actually, if I go into brush wire, you're gonna see the difference. So you can see that what is tessellated is only the places where we have rocks, and the places where we have grass, it's not being touched. So that is the reason for this lerb nodes. This lerb nodes are just doing the blending for us. Otherwise, everything will be tessellated, and not only the performance will tank, but it would just not look right. All right, everybody, that is it for this video. Thank you for watching. Leave a like if you like this video. Leave me a comment with your questions, your suggestions for future tutorials. I'm going to do another tutorial about the auto material with more complicated stuff, so please stay tuned for that. Ring that bell for notifications. I'm also going to be doing a live stream very soon, so make sure you're notified for that. Share this around, and I'll see you in the next video.